growth over the next decade versus growth over the last decade. Seems to me there is every reason to expect that it will be slower. The last decade began with GDP substantially below potential and ended with GDP somewhere near potential. The next decade is beginning with GDP at or above potential, and therefore does not have the gain from closing open gaps. It's a reasonable estimate that a decade ago, the economy was 4 or 5% short of potential. That's 0.5% a year in gain that will not be available to us going forward. The second substantial factor driving potential is built-in growth in the labor force, simply from the predictable dynamics of population and the reasonably predictable for the next few years dynamics of immigration. We can expect substantially lower labor force growth going forward. I have nothing to contribute to the discussion of TFP growth. It would surprise me if there was a substantial acceleration in TFP growth over the next decade. I say that in part because there's what I call the crowded restaurant effect. Any restaurant I go to reports itself to be short-staffed with waiters who are working unsustainably hard. In the short run, that manifests itself as measured higher productivity, but it is unsustainable. The people will quit or will require very large wage increases. And so when there is additional hiring, productivity will revert towards normal. That is the fairly standard mid-late stage of business cycle expansion pattern. So no open gap to fill, substantially slower labor force growth leads me to think that it is almost inevitable that, taking Dominic's question literally, GDP growth will be slower over the last decade than over the first. I am broadly supportive of the agenda of everything from more childcare to more infrastructure to more scientific innovation that a number of people here have advocated. I think it is hugely important. I don't think there are compelling calculations suggesting that it will add over a decade anything like the 0.5% to 1% that is necessary to overcome the headwinds that I described. Nonetheless, it is absolutely critical going forward.